going to be discussing how the advent of the internet affected the music industry. To get the information on that, go to your Music Industry Studies folder, go to Assignment 1 and click on PDF number 4. You'll see this page come up and you see the question there. This is part 3 of a 5-part assignment. So you're in assignment 1, question 3. It says discuss. Don't forget that this has to be a minimum of 200 words for this section, a minimum of 200 words. You don't have to write a book either. Discuss how the advent means the start of the internet, changed the music industry, and identify elements that have remained unchanged. So in a question like that, you'd go through it about 3 times in your own head to be sure what's being asked. Discuss means you have to write about it, talk about aspects of it, and aspects are parts. Advent means the start. Internet, you know what that is, how the internet changed the music industry. And talk about, in other words, identify elements, parts of the music industry that have remained unaffected. Now, all of you guys are what's referred to as digital natives. You were born into the internet. But the internet only became accessible by everybody in about 1998, and really just about everybody had it in about 2004, 2005. So all things considered, the internet is a relatively young phenomenon in people's lives, even though it's been in your lives all this time. So what kind of things about the music industry changed as a result of the internet? A huge amount. The industry changed unbelievably since the advent of the internet. Before that, you had the sales of physical items like vinyl, cassettes, and CDs. But when the internet came along, it signaled the death of physical media to experience music. And now the biggest change is that you mostly listen to your music via streaming platforms or via video playback platforms like YouTube or Rumble or whatever other video playback systems you use, Vimeo and so on. Okay, so the internet came along. The biggest thing was that there was a devastating drop in sales. What does it say here? Sales drop. Since the advent of the internet, since the start of the internet, there's been a notable drop in the sale of CDs due to both illegal and illegal downloading. Okay, a lot of this is irrelevant now because this whole paper that you're reading was written in 2013. That's a huge length of time in the music industry. So it's really how technology changed the music industry, more so than the internet. So CDs are not really a thing now. You can buy them in some places, but you have to have a CD player, obviously, to play. A CD means compact disc. They're a thing of the past, a dinosaur. Even now, they were invented and came out. People started buying them at about 1992, 1993. The first album that mass sold was an album called Brothers in Arms by a band called Dire Straits. And now CDs are hardly a thing worth talking about, and just about nobody of your generation uses compact discs. By the way, the sonic quality of compact discs is superior to the sonic quality of the music that you will be listening to off platforms like Spotify, because what you're listening to from platforms like Spotify and YouTube are what's known as MP3s. MP3s are slightly sonically inferior. There are reasons for that, which I won't go into. Second thing that the internet changed about the music industry is how consumers buy music. And this is basically saying that people seek, stream, and pay for individual songs now, tracks, as opposed to seeking out an entire album. And people cherry pick, so they try and get the best couple of songs from an album. And you guys live in the instant gratification generation, and because this is the way you've been socially engineered, is to expect instant joy very quickly. So a lot of people don't have the patience to stick with a full album. Something either hits them immediately, or they're not willing to engage in it. They're not willing to invest the time in it. And I do mean invest, because an investment is something that you put time or money into with the hope or expectation of a return. And sometimes when you stick with a couple of songs that you mightn't have liked initially, they often become the ones you like the most, because a particular thing happens when you listen to some songs 3 to 4 times. So it's saying the album format no longer has the same bearing as consumers increasingly avail of the option to cherry pick album tracks when purchasing online. Whoever wrote this, it's not phrased the best, but I've explained what that means. Even though a lot of artists still prefer creating an album and uploading an album. So it's because of the artists that albums have survived, not because of the music industry. And I know that from reading reports from the Spotifys of this world and the Distrifys and the iTunes of this world. It's really an artist-driven desire that albums still remain for artistic reasons. We go to music piracy. When this was written, it was a big problem for the music industry because people were downloading digital copies of music and videos via things like so-called torrent sites, Torrent. So people, because of the ease of access of digital downloading, people didn't pay for anything anymore. And I know certain generations, even the idea or the notion of paying for a digital download is outrageous to them, which shows you the shift in thinking. For example, generations that grew up in the 50s, 60s, 70s, and even 80s paid for everything they owned until cassettes came along, and cassettes meant that you could record directly from the radio, or you could copy somebody else's cassette if you had a 2 cassette compartment recorder. You could just borrow someone's cassette and make a copy, an inferior copy of the original cassette, because that was the analog world. But in the digital world, you can make an exact copy of the original source, and if that original source could be a video or a song file. One thing that the internet changed was it allowed independent artists to promote themselves, and it allowed certain songs to become viral if they were good enough. So certain, we refer to as bedroom artists, who might make a dance track in their own bedroom with accessible equipment, in other words, equipment that was cheap enough now to record sonically up to scratch recordings, could promote that recording on the internet and could build up a fan base without the need for a record company. That's what the internet allowed. But the aspect of the music industry that has remained unchanged is that the song still has to be great for it really to be listened to be liked, for it to go viral, and for a record company then to jump on board when they see that a certain song that might have been made in a bedroom is getting X number of plays. Then they see, okay, there's money to be made in this, now we'll jump on board, we'll get them to sign a record deal. But the internet allowed people to get attention before the record company jumped in, and that's the way things are happening now. You can think of several artists who blew up on TikTok and various other platforms like that. So, internet allowed people to collaborate on projects via digital files. If you're using a DAW, DAW, Digital Audio Workstation, in other words, multi-track editing recording software, you could send your arrangements to somebody that would be living in the far end of the planet. And you can do that now. You can upload your files onto WeTransfer or huge file sharing sites like that. There are many other aspects of the internet that allowed artists to promote themselves. You could get a graphic designer to make a wonderful cover for you. You didn't have to go to a very expensive graphic designer. You could upload great photographs of yourself or your artist. You could write your own biogs, in other words, biographies. You could upload your songs directly to radio stations, to advertising companies, to film production companies. You could upload digital ideas. You could send what's known as individual stems, for example, just the drum section of a track. You could just send them the drums, or maybe even a kick drum sample. So samples are simply individual recordings of, say, an instrument. It might be a kick drum sample. It might be a vocal sample, just a section or a phrase of a piece of music that's sung that you could send very quickly to, say, a dance producer who might be the other end of the globe. Unchanged elements of the internet that affect the music industry. The number one most important unchanged element is you still need talent. You still have to have a great song. You have to have a great arrangement. You have to have a great idea. There's no technology or internet that can replace that, and that's a good thing. Now, when I'm speaking now, it's January 2025. Already we have AI, auto melody, auto lyric generating software that is changing everything and is going to change everything. It's going to be interesting to see how well the AI can compete with human creativity. Maybe it'll supersede it. In other words, it will exceed it. It's going to be very, very interesting. This is the first time in the history of art, in the human experience, let alone music, where artificial intelligence is playing and is going to play a big part in it. What does it say here on changed elements of the internet? The structure of the music industry remains intact. That's just the politics and the hierarchies of record companies have remained the same. Even if an artist decides to self-release, he or she still has to do the job of the record company or management company that he or she has chosen to usurp. Usurp is a stupid word there, shouldn't have included that. It's unnecessary. That means when you usurp someone, it means that you do something without their permission. You act above them in a sense. So what's that saying is really, even if an artist self-releases, they still need the money from the record company to go huge. For example, Hozier, even though he had an incredible song, Take Me to Church, no one would ever have heard that except a few hundred people if it wasn't for the backing of the record company. The record company stepped in and initially put 5 million into the promotion of that song alone. Starting off. So there is a theory that nothing really truly becomes viral if it's not promoted by a heavyweight, big moneyed company, which sounds plausible to me. So it says creative competence. Competence means your ability to do something well or badly. So you still need to be able to create a very, very good song. Often you need a very good voice, very good singer, great arrangement, great melody, great lyrical, great psychological hook in a song. So it says the power of a great song is just as relevant now as it was in the 50s. In recording, you still need to keep your mind on what's commercial. If you want to be known by everybody, if you want to make money in the music industry, you have to be commercially aware. You have to be aware what's commercially, musically fashionable. And that's half of the reason why you might think, oh my god, all the music sounds the same at the moment. That's because the music industry is exactly the same as the fashion industry. Fashion is everything on the commercial side of music making. There are a lot of artists who don't care about fashion, and they see themselves as artists mainly, so they're never going to get rich. They're not that that's a bad thing, but they stick to their artistic integrity and don't worry too much about the commercial aspect of music making. So one aspect of the music industry that has remained unchanged, but this is inaccurate. The touring element of being an artist has changed massively, because artists actually have to tour more, because that's their main source of income, especially merchandise. Merchandise is any physical products you sell to an artist or a band's fan base. It could be t-shirts, mugs, caps, whatever. That's called merchandise. So an artist keeps most, if not all, of their merchandise. So an artist now has to tour more because its ticket sales is their main source of income. Copyright, artists are just as vigorously pursued for copyright infringement now as ever before. So that's just saying that it's actually easier to detect if an artist has copied or stolen some idea or a piece of music for someone else, because the digital evidence, the digital footprint is all over the internet. So it's actually easier to prove that someone stole your work or stole an idea because of the internet.